I'm very curious as to your thoughts and beliefs as to the systems in place. Like what do you believe is the best way to not only build human organization, if you will, and if you have an explanation to why the current rich people or the current hierarchies are in place, if you will. I don't know if I'm sounding very coherent, but yeah.
I mean, I think I know what you mean. I have kind of a boring answer. I think the I gotta. Can you mute yourself because my voice is echoing really bad? Thank you. Um, I honestly think the framers of the Constitution had like one of the absolute best ideas ever. I think it's no accident that pretty much every single country that has replaced their autocracy or monarchy or whatever with some form of representative government has basically copied the American idea. Now, there are huge problems in America, and it's kind of like the second part of what you're talking about. I think the problem with that is literally as simple as greed. Um, and and the greed is, on the part of the people with the money and the power and whatever. But they've also gotten into bed with people that make the laws. So they have rigged the game in their favor. But like when people talk about that science has been used to do horrible things, my answer to that is not to revert back to the Stone Age. So science can't hurt us anymore. My answer is better science. And I think the best way to fix the system we have, because I think inherently it is probably the best system you can have, because it has checks and balances and incentives set up in a particular way or whatever. I think the best way to do that is with more of the same type of representative system or whatever. Like, for example, amending the Constitution. That is something that's perfectly valid to do. I don't think we need to abolish the patriarchy or have anarchy or anything like that. And you hear like weird stuff from every end. I mean, like radical people on the left, they say like we just need to tear it down because it's inherently oppressive and whatever. People on the far right, like libertarians, think or anarchists, which is kind of the same thing. It's like they just want to live in a world where everybody drinks water with lead in it and we all die and we never have any quality of life improvements, but at least the goddamn government won't be telling me what to do. I saw a really, really funny comment today on a TikTok video. The TikTok video was like some AI thing, like narrating like a libertarian's paradise, and it's like the libertarian wakes up and just like in 20 different instances because of lack of regulation, the libertarian like dies or is poisoned or is maimed or is taken advantage of, and they can't do anything about it because they don't have enough money to bribe somebody who's powerful or a private security firm or whatever, because there's no police to do anything about it. And the comment was libertarians be like, tyranny.gov? No. Tyranny.com? Yes. And I was like, yeah, you know what? In very simple terms, I think that explains it pretty well. So that's my very long-winded answer.
Would you not say that, at least in our current system, that there are classes of people that are inherently, one might say, unjust? Like, for example, there are people who will always make their money through working for a living, and there are people who make their money by owning stuff for a living.
Right.
And that class is determined by your birth, pretty much.
Yeah, and there's something like cosmically. Can you mute yourself again? Sorry. There is something that just seems like cosmically unfair about that, but I don't think it's immoral or unjust just because it's not fair. Because if we take that logic to its extreme, there are people that are born without arms or legs. So should we either abort all fetuses that can be determined to not have arms or limbs, or should we cut the arms and limbs off of everybody? So like what I'm sort of doing is like saying like, okay, if we're going with this, the pipe dream of equity rather than like equality, then it will always be absurd, and there will always be something ridiculous that we can argue about it, because it'll never be equitable. And the only way to even approach the only way to even approach something remotely equitable, like on a really like grand scale, is with totalitarian control. That's the only thing you could possibly do about it. And while I think that there are many things about our system that are deeply unfair, I wouldn't call it like necessarily unjust. And like my proof of that would just be the immense amount of progress that we've been able to make just, since the founding of this country. And some of that's because of the advancements of science. But, a lot of it is through just making good decisions in like the way we structure and organize our societies. Because the thing about like technology feeds in with this too, and science feeds in with this in a big way, but like legislation does too. Those advancements, they always lift up the bottom, because the quality of life for the rich and the fat cats or whatever has always been the highest among anybody in the world at any point in time. It always is. Advancements always lift up the bottom, and we have done more for people at the bottom than people at the top. Now, what I can imagine people are screaming about in response to that is, like, for example, income inequality has just grown to an absolutely disgusting level over the past since about the 80s, right? And yes, that is true. However, still, the people at the bottom live longer, healthier, more productive lives that they derive greater meaning out of than at any point in history at the same time, right? So, like, it sucks, but we're not doing that bad, is kind of what I would say.
Okay, I understand your position on the sort of cosmically unjust, but my answer to that would be that these systems in place are not created by the cosmos. They're man-made, pretty much. We choose who gets to own the companies and not. We built these governments and systems ourselves. You can argue that, for example, some of these stuff are 200 years old or whatever. But to me, it seems like, for example, Elon Musk's son will always do better than you, even if you might be smarter than him, or even if you might have more merit than Elon Musk's son. But through the sheer injustice of him being born to a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, he's ahead of you in that game. Would you say that's not a meritocratic system? And could we change that in the future?
So, like, I've heard people say, like, I don't know if they call it like the death tax or whatever. It's like, I get the idea that being born to a rich person is just completely unfair, like, in a way. But I just don't think that the government should have the right to literally take away everything that you have and disallow you to bequeath it to your children or whatever, or even 99% of what you have.
Clarify, I don't mean the government should take away everything that you have. I just believe that, for example, out of the $200 billion that Elon Musk has,
yeah,
I don't think if $1 million of it goes to his son, that it would completely destroy his son's life. I think you can live on $1 million a pretty
no,
chill life, you know?
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know. It's kind of a slippery slope thing. Like, if we're okay with doing like this much, then why not just like all of it or whatever. But just completely separate from that, I guess I would just kind of say, the weird thing about this is we're when we're focusing on this, we are being super elitist because we're saying it's better to be filthy, stinking rich than not. Now, it affords you like advantages, and if we have a system where people with money are doing corrupt things, and the system we have is inherently working against just regular working class or poor people or whatever, then I understand like the sentiment, or like maybe like trying to do something better about that. But no, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's not worse to be like, your life isn't less valuable because you are poor. You can say that you're probably not going to live as long. Well, you certainly are not. Well, at least the odds are that you're not going to live as long, and some other things. But it is kind of a little bit like not like, and I believe in like redistributive programs and stuff like that. But it is a little bit snobbish and kind of like entitled to be like, more people should have more money, you know? I just want to make sure that we're not
I
going
I
there
understand
with it.
where you're coming from, and I agree with it when we were talking about the ultra rich. You know, you're buying your second yacht and your second mansion, but for most people, that money isn't about getting what they want; it's about getting what they need. And for example, water and food are needs, are universal human needs. You need water, I need water. Everyone watching the stream needs water. And when we were talking about money, it would be nice if our economy wasn't structured in a way that it tries to like um, aim towards people's wants and more so people's needs. But unfortunately, the philosophers that made our economy did not take that into account. So, if, for example, you'd feed
Well,
100 million people by just taking the 200 billion off of Elon Musk and just leaving his son with $1 million, would you not do it? Is my question.
I mean, I might, but I don't find that to be actually. I find that to be more of a band-aid rather than like a proactive solution to anything. Like, we could end homelessness if like we spend too much money on our military budget, obviously, right? We could cut it by 90% and be fine. Obviously, we'd probably actually be safer because we wouldn't be meddling in foreign affairs and people wouldn't hate us as much. Now, you could use that money to solve homelessness in our country. Except that doesn't address root causes, right? Now, when it comes to like the whole idea of like what is a government's obligation to do, I would say to guarantee safety, security to people, and to grant them what we call their inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I think what goes along with that is like people should be. I don't think the government should provide 100% of our housing or your food allotment or anything like that. But the system should exist that a person can support themselves in a without working 18 hours a day to be able to do that. If we can have a system that works in that way and can also incentivize like people being able to like have a family and afford to have a family, so that we can continue existing, then we don't need to do. I don't think we need to do that much more than that, if that makes sense. And then going back to the thing you said about like the philosophers that founded this country didn't like set it up that way, whatever. Well, that's because that long ago, the amount of power that one person could wield was just simply nothing remotely like on the magnitude of what people can do today. Big part of that's because of technology, right? Like we literally wield mechanical power, but now we wield this interconnected sort of like manipulative, gather people, resources, ideas, and money or whatever through, the internet and whatever else. They couldn't have envisioned that. And that's not really their fault. But again, I think the fix for that is to use the system that they put in place to fix it, right? So, like, for example, I think the Supreme Court has the Citizens United ruling completely wrong. I think that that's absolutely, I think that that's been catastrophic for the country. And I think if we got rid of that, that would be one step in the right direction. Term limits for people in the government would be another step in the right direction. Something about, like, I don't know, like now we have because of Citizens United, we now have super PACs. So now you've just given more power to, people that have all of the money. I think we can fix it by using the system we have in the way it was like designed to be used, basically.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. I mean, this is a topic we could delve into for hours, but I want to give other people the chance to talk as well. So, yeah, good luck.
You're welcome. If you want to read a good book about this kind of thing, the one that I thought did it the best was called The Constitution of Knowledge by Jonathan Rauch.